Ade was poor. So poor that his pockets echoed with emptiness like a hollow drum. While other men wore fine garments and spoke proudly, Baba Ade had no elegant words. He couldn't read or write. He was the only man in Kasimbi who had never stepped into a classroom. Because of this, people looked down on him. Baba Ade had a massive family, a garden of souls, each with their own thorns. 4 wives, each one with a stronger will than the last, and 12 daughters, radiant as moonbeams. But despite their numbers, Baba Ade was a man alone. Whenever he passed, the villagers chuckled cruelly. "Look at Baba Ade," they'd sneer, shaking their heads. "The man can't even read his own name. What a disgrace." But Baba Ade never replied. He walked with his head bowed, heart as heavy as a grinding stone. He could feel their ridicule like shadows clinging to his feet. What no one in Kasimbi knew, however, was that Baba Ade held a secret bigger than any could imagine. He was, in truth, a billionaire, the richest man in the region. He had hidden this wealth not out of shame, but for reasons deeper than anyone, not even his wives or daughters, could understand. The tale of Baba Ade had only just begun. For you see, it is dangerous to judge a man by what he shows on the outside. Today's beggar could be tomorrow's savior. At age 60, illness struck like a thief in the night. Baba Ade woke one morning to find his hands numb, his legs stiff as old tree roots. He tried to move, but nothing happened. His body had betrayed him. His family rushed him from healer to healer, carrying him like a sack of millet from one corner of Kasimbi to another. Herbs were smeared across his skin, charms whispered over his head, bitter roots chewed. But nothing helped. Weeks turned to months. Their money ran dry. Baba Ade grew weaker, motionless as a fallen tree. His family's love thinned like water in the dry season. One by one, his wives began whispering among themselves. "What did we ever gain from marrying him? He's nothing but a burden." Even his dazzling daughters, the envy of the region, began mocking him. When he tried to advise them, they scoffed. "What do you know, old man? Illiterate fool. Learn to read before you lecture us." The pain in his chest was worse than the sickness. They wouldn't feed him, clean him, or even talk to him. He lay in filth, his once proud frame reduced to misery. Only a few kind neighbors brought him bowls of food, left silently by his side. The daughters, meanwhile, filled the home with noise, strangers, music, and laughter, ignoring the sick man inches away. He had become invisible, a ghost in his own house. Then one bright afternoon, the eldest daughter strutted in, proud as ever, arm in arm with a tall, wealthy stranger named Gabriel. His suit sparkled under the sun, and his shoes were as clean as polished mirrors. But as soon as Gabriel saw Baba Ade lying on the mat, he dropped to his knees and prostrated deeply. "Ah, Baba," he greeted, forehead to floor. "It is an honor." The daughters froze. Not a word escaped them. The daughters froze. Not a word escaped them. Gabriel, the elegant, wealthy man they had all tried to impress, was bowing to Baba Ade, the man they had abandoned, insulted, and laughed at. Their eyes widened. Their proud chins trembled. Gabriel slowly rose, his eyes scanning the stunned daughters. "You don't know," he asked gently, brushing dust from his knee. "Your father, Baba Ade, is my boss. He owns the largest gold mine in this region." A thunderclap couldn't have been louder than Gabriel's words. The daughters stood frozen, as though lightning had struck the room. "Our father," one of them whispered, voice trembling. "But he's poor. He can't even walk." Gabriel gave a small, knowing smile. "He only looks poor. Years ago, Baba Ade put me in charge of his company while he returned here to live quietly. He took a 5-year leave, gave me full power. But every coin spent, every deal signed, I reported directly to him." The daughters staggered, their legs weak, their thoughts wild. They had mocked him, refused to help him. But he had been the hand behind the gold. Gabriel continued, his voice calm. Your father kept his wealth secret to protect you. He feared that men would come not for love but for his riches. So he lived quietly and watched. Their faces fell, the weight of guilt crashing upon them. He wanted to see, Gabriel said, who would love him without silver, who would stand by him when there was nothing to gain. And what did he see? Silence. Tears brimmed in the eldest daughter's eyes. The others stared at the ground, ashamed. He saw daughters who laughed at his pain, wives who turned away, a family that failed him. At that moment, word of Baba Aid's true identity spread like dry harmattan wind across Kasimbi. The villagers, those who had laughed, who had mocked, stood speechless. They had called him a fool, beggar, but he was the richest man they knew. The daughters, their once proud hearts broken by truth, remembered every cruel word, every time they had walked past their father like he was invisible. Their stomachs twisted with regret. Baba Ade, lying quietly on his mat, watched them now, not with anger but with a deep, quiet sorrow. He had seen it all. And he had made his decision. With the room still heavy in silence, Baba Ade finally spoke. His voice was weak, but it carried the weight of thunder. My daughters, he said slowly, I watched you when I could no longer move. I listened to every word. I saw every action. I heard your laughter when I cried inside. I smelled my own filth while you powdered your faces. I felt the cold of the floor while you danced. The daughters fell to their knees. Their voices cracked with tears. Baba, please forgive us. We didn't know. We were blind. Baba Ade looked at them, not with hate, but with an emptiness deeper than hunger. I didn't need your money. I needed your hands, your hearts, just a bowl of warm water, just a word of comfort, even a look. But you gave me nothing. The youngest daughter sobbed, crawling to his side, clinging to his frail hand. Please, Baba, we were foolish. We are sorry. He did not pull his hand away. I love you, he whispered. That will never change. But trust, respect, those are not given freely. They are earned. Then he turned his eyes to Gabriel. Bring me the book. Gabriel nodded, reaching into his briefcase. He pulled out a thick leather-bound book and placed it on a small stool beside Baba Ade. This, Baba Ade said, is my will. The daughters gasped. I have rewritten it, he continued, and removed the names of those who turned away. My wealth will go to those who showed kindness, the neighbors who fed me, the children who sang for me, the stranger who once knelt and lifted my chin when I lay in the dirt. One of the wives cried out, clutching at her chest. You can't. We are your family. I know, Baba Ade said softly. But family is not only by blood. Family is who holds your hand when everyone else lets go. The entire compound fell into silence. Outside, the villagers were gathering. Word had spread. The once scorned Baba Ade was now a symbol, teacher, a lesson in humility, love, and truth. And Baba Ade, lying on his mat, looked up at the sky. The sun was warm again. The same sun that had shone on his suffering was now shining on his justice. But his story wasn't over. Not yet. Because in the shadows of the village, a certain greedy man, Okechi, a distant cousin who had always watched Baba Aid's house with envy, had overheard everything. In the dim corner of the village square, hidden behind a crooked fence of dry reeds, Okechi clenched his fists. His eyes burned with envy. His lips curled into a sour grin. He had always suspected that Baba Ade was more than he seemed. No poor man lived with such calm, such quiet pride. And now the truth was out. Baba Ade was a billionaire. But he's old, Okechi muttered to himself, glancing toward the crowd gathering at Baba Aid's compound. And he's dying. Which means there's still time. Okechi was a man known for sweet words and crooked deeds. While others worked their farms, he worked his schemes. And now, a new one began to form in his mind like a storm cloud rising over the hills. Back at the compound, Baba Ade rested inside while Gabriel met quietly with the kind neighbors who had once brought bowls of food and whispered prayers by his side. One by one, they were led into the sitting room, where Baba Ade personally thanked them, some with gifts of land, others with sacks of food or handfuls of gold nuggets. For the first time in their lives, the humble were being lifted. But outside the gate, Okechi was already moving. That night, under the cover of darkness, he visited each of Baba Ade's wives and daughters in secret. His voice was calm, calculated. "You deserve a second chance," he whispered to the eldest daughter. "Your father is weak now. His will is not final until it's sealed by the village council. If you join me, I can help change things." At first, the daughters hesitated. But the seed had been planted. What if Baba Ade dies before the final meeting with the council? Okechi asked the second wife. "Who will stop us then?" By the third day, whispers spread through Baba Ade's household. Some of the daughters who had wept at his feet were now cold and quiet. His second wife no longer brought him water. His fourth wife began locking herself in her room. Gabriel noticed it first. He came to Baba Ade late at night. "They are changing again," he said gently. "I think someone is poisoning their hearts." Baba Ade nodded. "Okechi, you know." "I know his kind," Baba Ade said. "Snakes always come near when gold is uncovered." Gabriel leaned forward. "Should I stop him?" Baba Ade's eyes were weary but sharp. "No. Let him act. Let them all show who they truly are. I will write a second will. One no one sees until the very end." Gabriel's eyebrows rose. "A hidden will?" Baba Ade gave a faint smile. "Yes. And this time the test will be deeper. I will disappear." Gabriel's heart skipped. Disappear. "I will vanish," Baba Ade said. "Let them believe I've died. Let them fight. Let them reveal themselves again. And when the dust settles, we will see who truly deserves the legacy." And so, that very night, as the moon cast silver across Kasimbi, Baba Ade vanished from his compound. No one saw him leave. No one knew where he went. By morning, only his empty bed remained. And the war for his fortune had begun. By dawn, the compound of Baba Ade was in chaos. His fourth wife was the first to scream, rushing into the courtyard with wide eyes and disheveled hair. "He's gone," she wailed. "Baba Ade is gone." The daughters came running, their faces a mixture of confusion and panic. They tore through every room, checked the storeroom, the kitchen, even under the bed, hoping it was a cruel joke. But all they found was a folded wrapper, a half-finished bowl of pap, and the thin mattress where Baba Ade once lay. "Did he die in the night?" one daughter gasped. "There's no body," another whispered. "Then where is he?" That's when Okechi stepped forward. He had been waiting for this exact moment. Wearing a long white buba and holding a walking stick he didn't need, he stood at the compound gate with a face full of concern and ambition. "My sisters," he said, his voice syrupy. "The truth is bitter. Your father must have passed silently in the night and been taken by spirits." The wives gasped. Okechi nodded solemnly, then leaned close. "But listen, we cannot let outsiders control his wealth. You must act now. If the council hears of his death and there's no will, the government will seize everything." He paused, watching their faces twist in fear. "We must act before the news spreads. We'll claim he left instructions with me, his cousin. I'll say he wanted the wealth shared among you, with me as custodian." First they hesitated. But greed, once awakened, is not easily silenced. By the time the village elders arrived, led by Chief Olabode, the daughters and wives stood together, sorrowful but strangely united. Okechi stood beside them, head bowed, hands crossed like a loyal shepherd. "Baba Ade is gone," the eldest daughter announced. "He died peacefully in his sleep." Chief Olabode narrowed his eyes. "Where is the body?" "We buried him quickly," Okechi said. "According to his wishes." No crowd. No noise. The elders murmured among themselves. A few neighbors, those who had once cared for Baba Ade, looked uneasy. Something didn't feel right. Gabriel, however, was silent. Hidden among the crowd, he watched it all unfold from the shadows, his jaw tight. Everything was going just as Baba Ade had planned. And far away, in a quiet cottage near the mountain stream, Baba Ade sat on a low wooden stool, watching the birds fly over the trees. "They've begun," he said softly to the woman beside him. Mama Ronk, the kind old herbalist who had once treated his sores when no one else would. "Yes," she said, stirring a pot of herbs. "And they will eat themselves before the fire even reaches their feet." Baba Ade nodded. "Let them fight over gold. When the dust settles, only truth will remain." Back in Kasimbi, Okechi began forging documents, while the daughters divided Baba Ade's properties in whispers and arguments. Old bitterness returned. The second wife accused the third of stealing jewelry. The fourth daughter slapped the fifth over a plot of farmland. The household began to rot from within. And all the while Baba Ade watched from afar, waiting. Within a week, the compound of Baba Ade had become a battlefield. Laughter had turned to shouting, sweet words to curses. The daughters, once united in false mourning, now guarded rooms with padlocks and slept with keys under their pillows. The wives no longer cooked together or shared stories in the evening shade. Every corner of the house held suspicion. One morning, as the sun rose lazily over Kasimbi, a fight broke out in the courtyard. "You took the deed to the cocoa farm," shouted Adejoke, the second daughter, clutching a crumpled paper. "It was mine before you could even spell your name," snapped Ronk, the eldest. Flaps flew. Scarves scattered. Neighbors gathered at the fence, whispering and shaking their heads. In the middle of the chaos, Okechi stood calm, sipping from a gourd of palm wine, watching the family tear itself apart like dry leaves in a whirlwind. Each day, he grew bolder, demanding signatures, issuing orders, pocketing coins from the sale of Baba Ade's livestock. He even called himself caretaker general of the Ade estate. But Gabriel had seen enough. Late one evening, as the compound slept restlessly, he left his rented room and made the long, dusty journey to the hidden cottage by the stream. There he found Baba Ade, seated beneath a mango tree, carving shapes into soft wood. "They're eating each other alive," Gabriel said, breathless. "Okechi has taken control. The daughters now hate one another. And the villagers, they suspect something is off, but no one dares speak." Baba Ade looked up, eyes calm. "Good," he said. "Let the mask fall completely." Gabriel frowned. "But Baba, how long will you hide?" "Until the storm destroys the fence," he replied. "Then I will return to plant again." The next day, as Okechi prepared for a private auction to sell one of Baba Ade's lands to a foreign buyer, a rumor began to spread across Kasimbi like dry season fire. Someone saw Baba Ade at the mountain stream. At first, the family laughed. "A ghost, maybe," Okechi said. But then a second person swore it. Then a third. "He walked past me with Mama Ronk," said an old hunter. "He looked strong. Healthier than I've ever seen him." Fear crept into Okechi's bones. By the third day, the entire village was humming with it. "Baba Ade is alive." The fourth day it was no longer rumor. Because Baba Ade returned. Not in secret. Not quietly. He came riding in the back of Chief Olabode's truck, seated like a king beneath a canopy, dressed in clean white with a long staff in his hand. The truck stopped in front of his compound. The entire village gathered, mouths open, hearts thudding. And the daughters. They were frozen, their faces pale with shame and terror. Okechi ran, or at least he tried. Two youths grabbed him before he could leave the compound gate. And Baba Ade stepped out of the truck, his face calm but fierce. "You all thought I was dead," he said, his voice clear and steady. "But I was watching, listening, testing." He turned to the crowd. "And now the time for judgment has come." The compound was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Baba Ade stood tall beneath the wide avocado tree in his courtyard. The white cloth draped over his shoulders fluttered softly, and his staff tapped the ground once. Firm, final. The villagers circled around, their faces mixed with awe, guilt, and wonder. The daughters and wives stood apart, their eyes cast down, their fine clothes now wrinkled by shame. Okechi, bound by rope and guarded by two strong youths, knelt in the dust, his face twitching with fear. Baba Ade turned slowly, letting his gaze sweep over every single face. Then he began to speak. When I was poor, when I looked poor, none of you saw me. None but a few kind souls. The rest of you gave me your backs. My daughters. My wives. You spat bitter words when all I needed was water. You mocked me when all I needed was peace. He looked toward the crowd of villagers. And you, people of Kasimbi, you laughed with them. You called me names. To gossip. Not one of you asked me if I was hungry. Only a handful among you brought food, whispered prayers, and left without waiting for thanks. The villagers lowered their eyes. Few wept. Then Baba Ade raised his staff and pointed to Gabriel, who stood tall and proud beside Chief Olabode. This man, this son I never fathered, stood by me when all others turned. He shall inherit half of my estate. Not just the gold mine, but the name, the legacy. Gasps filled the air. To the neighbors who brought me food and sang songs to comfort my soul, I have already begun returning what you gave in secret. More shall come. He turned now to his daughters. His voice lowered, colder than before. As for you, they looked up trembling. Your beauty blinded you. Your pride deafened you. You showed me who you are. And now, you shall live with the shadow of what could have been. He opened the small leather-bound will in his hand. From this day you are not banished, but you will earn your way. If you want your share, serve this community. Feed the poor. Care for the sick. Your hearts must change before your names return to this book. The wives broke into tears. Some collapsed to the ground, wailing. The daughters dropped to their knees. Then Baba Ade turned to Okechi. And you? Okechi looked up, pleading. Baba, cousin. I was only trying to help. You forged papers. You tried to steal from my children. Even though they failed me, they are still my blood. You tried to sell land you never owned. You used your tongue like a knife. He paused. But I will not send you to prison. Well, I will leave you with something worse. He turned to Chief Olabode. From this day, Okechi shall live in the compound he tried to steal. But he will live as a servant, under the very roof he thought he'd rule. Chief Olabode nodded. Let it be so. And the villagers murmured, some in agreement, some in stunned silence. Then Baba Ade raised his voice one final time. This story is not just mine. It is yours. Remember it. Teach your children. Kindness is gold. Humility is strength. And truth always returns, no matter how long it hides. He turned and walked slowly into his compound, Gabriel beside him. And as the sun began to set over Kasimbi, the villagers stood still, watching the man they once laughed at become the legend they would never forget.